Welcome to another episode of the Christian Buddy Show. I'm now honored to have Jordan Michaelides on the show. How are you feeling today, Jordan?
Good, mate. Good. Although I'm not sure if you're in Melbourne, where it looks like we're about to go into a lockdown. I'm hearing.
Don't say that. Oh no, I was playing tennis just before, and the boys mentioned that we might have to wear masks outside. So
Yeah.
it's terrible news at the moment.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. We're looking at like a new office space in Richmond, and I'm meant to be going there with builders on Tuesday to like review the floor plan.
Right.
And I'm just like, what am I going to do now?
What are you gonna do now?
I don't know. I really don't know. 'Cause the whole thing is the place is like, so we're going to get quotes, and the reason is that for the lease, because it's been empty since February of last year.
Yeah.
It's a bit run down, so it needs some work. The whole lease is conditional on this rent-free period of whatever construction we do goes to that rent-free period. So if
Right.
we spend 20, 30 grand, they'll give us that rent free over 3 years.
Okay.
So, if that happens, then we're just got to wait again for the millionth time and continue to work from home, which I'm getting pretty sick of.
Yeah, it's a bit of a ping pong game. I think that they're going to start pushing the vaccine a little bit more intensely over the next coming months. I'm not going to allude to any conspiracy theories, but look, I thought I'd just jump straight into the heavy hitting questions.
Yeah.
And you're quite an interesting person, and I want to kind of peel back the layers here. Are you fearful that artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence? Is that on your mind? Is that on your radar?
I don't know where I sit on this anymore. Like, I used to be really, really deep on that topic, like super deep. And a lot of the opinions that people held were honestly related to what, like, let's say if Elon Musk came out with some opinion, that would be the general consensus of like people around artificial intelligence. You've also got Sam Harris, who's like a big heavy hitter in this space in terms of the ethics of artificial intelligence. Do you know Sam Harris? Well,
Yes.
yeah. So to me, it could, but I just don't know because I'm not really at the forefront anymore when it comes to looking at that sort of stuff.
Right.
I think it has the potential to become quite benevolent. I think it has the potential to basically dictate what we do with our lives. Like I think a good example of this is there's some people who think it's inevitable. I don't know if you've read *Sapiens: A Brief History of Human Time*, but that author wrote a book called *Homo Deus*, and the whole thesis of the book is that we're already in this era and that it's sort of inevitable.
Yeah.
Because if you think about the way that we use social media, if we use a lot of basic services, it's often dictated to us before we even realize. Like if you see there's a good example of how women who are pregnant won't even realize they're pregnant, but the algorithm in Facebook will know that they're pregnant before they are because it's picked up on sort of the cues of use of through various pixelated websites that have been marked by the Facebook pixel. So I don't know. I don't know where I sit on it at the moment, but I definitely think that if it's not controlled in a strong way, then it could be used to our detriment as a species, so to speak. And I think that's why it is good that like Elon Musk has OpenAI. I think organizations
Right.
like that existing is great, to be honest.
Yeah, I had a read through your LinkedIn blog posts, and you put up some great content. So shout out anyone who wants to read some online content. You can go to Jordan's LinkedIn page. But so with you posted a video about DeepMind Google. I'm not sure if you remember, but yeah, I just had a watch of it before, and it was interesting. Basically, I'll give some context to the people listening at home. So over a span of 7 days. This video shows the evolution of this AI, and on day 5, it becomes so advanced that it wipes out North Korea. And I think this is a possibility. I don't know if it's the truth, but yeah, it's definitely one way that things can happen.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I just think it's interesting fun to speculate.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting area, because people look at AI as like this thing that exists in and of itself in its own, like it exists in a vacuum, so to speak, but it sort of doesn't. It's like with cryptocurrency, it's more a technology that exists or starts to exist in everyday life in ways that we don't start to realize. Other good examples are things like TikTok. The TikTok algorithm is purely driven by machine learning and is so accurate that when I've been using this example recently when we chat to clients, because a lot of people are moving from Facebook as an ad platform to TikTok because of the iOS 14 change and the blocking of the TikTok pixel. But when
Right.
you go to TikTok, you can actually get conversions without any targeted data. So if you have a good ad and you hit a generalized audience that are related to that ad, you can actually make conversions on a campaign. Whereas previously with Instagram, you'd be lucky to make one or two conversions, but once you've made those conversions, then you start to use that data and target people who look like that individual. But TikTok is so good at knowing who you are that you can convert without a lot of that retargeting data, which yeah, it can be scary.
I want to get into that TikTok area a bit more. Just before I do that, we've got a live question from one of our viewers here, Jan Lazinski. This is directed to you, Jordan. Is Facebook the next 1984 George Orwell with AI usage?
No, I don't think so. At least not at the moment. It has the potential uh, for that, but I think like their user numbers are down massively. So I'm not sure. I don't know in 10 years from now whether Facebook will exist. When was the last time you used Facebook?
I'm on it just for promotionary reasons, and just to stalk my ex girlfriend. I mean, no, just promotionary reasons. But look,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really use. Yeah, mainly more YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know if Facebook will exist in its current form in 10 years from now. So I don't think so. I think
okay.
maybe YouTube could go down that route, but it's a long bow.
Kind of directing it back to TikTok. So, what was you were mentioning something about the new algorithm? What
Mhm.
was um
What
what
was
was that?
that? So it's not so much about well, okay, they're two very different things, very different algorithms. So Facebook, uh, for those who are aware, Facebook. Let's call when I say Facebook as well, I mean like Facebook and Instagram. So it's not just Facebook on itself. Um, they've built the algorithm within the Instagram platform as well that feeds into the ad platform, etc. So Facebook, they put all of their engineering effort into basically utilizing a pixel system. A pixel system is where you put a pixel on a website. That data of people, of the way they interact with the website, will get pushed back to the algorithm or like the data trough on Facebook. Facebook would then use that data to help you target people for ads. So that was the go-to, and that's what has made Facebook. What's Facebook's market cap today? Facebook market cap, it's nearly, it's a lot, like nearly $1 billion, $985.69 billion.
Okay.
So it's basically made Zuckerberg, and people always joke like, the more data Zuckerberg has, the more he realizes how to be a human, so to speak. So that's been the age-old joke. Now, the iOS change, because the majority of us in the West use iPhones, the iOS change has blocked that pixel usage. So previously, they could get as much data as they wanted. Now you've got to opt into it. You've got to click
Right.
yes on a certain app, on a website, etc. Not only that, the people who are running ads on a website have to have that piece of code installed on the website correctly and measuring the correct data. So the data accuracy has dropped off the face of the earth, and the impact on that is that people just aren't converting like they are with ads on the Facebook ad platform. So they're looking for alternatives. What's been big in the last since COVID really is TikTok, and their algorithm's very different in that all of their data is predominantly based on what you do on the platform rather than off the platform.
Right.
So the example I give to people is that Facebook would get 50% of its data from your activity off the platform, whereas TikTok would get 10% of its data from activity you do off the platform. It's not reliant on it, but it definitely helps. And so, you know, do you use TikTok at all?
No.
Okay. Yeah, try it.
I've heard some rumors that there's third party companies stealing, harvesting my personal information. Are these all rumors, or what? Should I be skeptical, or?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I will say one thing: I don't trust the Chinese Communist Party, and I know that TikTok, while they've segregated the apps in Western countries, I still wouldn't pass them. I still wouldn't put it past them that there's some sort of a backdoor or way for them to capture data of people, so to speak. But yeah, I guess to the point, the algorithm's just way more effective, and it knows you way, way, way too well. And I think sort of that's the future of where a lot of these social platforms will go, is emphasizing the use within the platform rather than off the platform.
Cool. All right, Jan, popping the questions away. Thank you, Jan. What's your thoughts on facial recognition, the next AI marketing tool for advertisers?
Well, I guess I'd put it to Jan what he means by facial recognition, but I've got a feeling that a lot of these platforms, I'm pretty sure it's quite clear. There's that doco that was on Netflix that everyone watched about social networks, The Social Dilemma,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Last year, that was the big thing in the lockdown period, as everyone was watching The Social Dilemma. I'm pretty sure most apps utilize facial data in the way that you use your app and you look at it, etc. So I think that's already a given. If you look at the way that people use iPhones, when you essentially have you got an iPhone or you got an Android?
iPhone, yeah.
Okay, you know what it's like. You get Face ID. You got to move your head around like this. I think that stuff is sort of in its infancy, but it's already being utilized quite heavily. So who knows where that goes? But I definitely think it plays a part. It will play a part in advertising in future.
Okay. Okay. So that's pretty interesting, and I guess kind of to get to understand you more as a person, you do you have a background in programming and
No, just more of a background in tech,
in tech?
like more on the marketing and sales side. But I just have a general interest in this sort of stuff.
And this ties into your day-to-day job because you're owning Neuralle, was it a digital consultancy?
Agency. It's a
Agency,
digital
sorry.
Yeah.
Digital, should have got that right. Digital agency. And how's that been for you? What's been the biggest challenge for you so far?
Well, okay, so I guess the backstory is we started so this all kicked off in 2017. That's the podcast, so to speak. So Uncommon, the podcast, started 2017. That's when I first started doing that sort of stuff. So we spent 2 years doing that. It was my now wife, but girlfriend at the time. We just wanted to do like a little side project. I thought, okay, I'm in sales and marketing. I want to get better at conversing, so I'll start this podcast. So we do that. It's 2 years in, and we start building up this network. I already had a network from selling in the tech space or in the challenger brand space. So we get to sort of start of 2019, and people ask us, "Hey, can you make content for us?" And my fiance, she was my fiance at the time, but Lauren, she was working at PwC. She'd always worked in the creative industry, and so we're like, "Well, you have this as a job. Why don't we just start doing work for people and see whether we can get you out of having to work for?" She was at PwC, so having to work in the corporate world. We had a few clients that first started making podcasts, then we were making video. And then by late 2019, early 2020 is when we were like, okay, let's double down on this. And I think it was April 2019 that Lauren left her job, but by December 2019, we had a proper functioning business where we weren't just hiring freelancers, we were probably getting to the point of hiring staff. And so 2020 was actually, although it was the lockdown, that we had in Melbourne, we grew quite a lot. We put on 2 staff. We started to find more of our niche. There's this age-old saying in the ad space that it's called the 5 A's, where you do you start out, you do anything for anyone, anytime, any price, anywhere. And so over time, we whittled that down. We got rid of the anywhere, we got rid of the anything, anytime, any price, and eventually we got rid of anyone. So as it stands today, we are a social and influencer agency, sort of like integrated talent focused on challenger brands. And yeah, it's growing quite a lot. I guess our specialty, as I said, is that social influencer space, but the subspecialty would be TikTok. We've got 3 staff, including Lauren and myself, 2 freelancers, and I think after we make this move to the office in Richmond, I'm hoping we'll be able to double our headcount. But
Yep.
yeah, it's all very exciting. It's just I'm just constantly lacking resources, so it's just about
Okay.
getting more clients so we can get more resources and do more of the stuff we want to do.
Okay. And kind of bringing it back to that 5 A's that you mentioned, for people starting out, and even for myself, I wanted to get into podcast production. Do you recommend doing work for free? Is this something?
I guess it depends on where someone's at. Um, if you don't have a network of people so I guess it comes from how much you're putting out there, and then whether you want to how do you monetize the thing. So for us at the time, it was we didn't have enough reach, so to speak, because it was a B2B focused podcast. There's a lot of business people in there. It's not a comedy podcast. It's not a pop related podcast. It's not an everyday chatty type podcast. It's often business, media, and marketing. So our audience size was small. We might have, I think today we'd have 2 to 3,000 unique listeners, but that network of people are often people that are very prominent within the certain space that we operate in. So the marketing, media, and in this case, the tech field. So a lot of prominent people know us, and that is valuable in and of itself. So
Okay.
for us, it was obvious at the time. People were asking us, how do you do this thing? Podcasts were new. Can you help us with this? And so originally I would send off emails and say, hey, this is how you do it. And then I got to a point after doing 5 or 6 of them, I just said, actually, there's sort of a business here. There's enough people asking us to do it that we should just do it rather than just giving this information for free. We never made podcasts for people for free. I would never do that because I just didn't want to take that financial risk. People can do that, and you can go out and pitch people, but I guess it just depends on where you're at in terms of your audience size and how you monetize it. So for us, it was monetizing it through the tight knit network we had versus charging for ads. And for us, we could capture more value by doing that than running ads.
Okay.
So it comes down to the individual is where is the value in their network? Is it the fact that they have lots of consumers that are there and interested, and should they go for something like ads,
Yep.
or or have they got a tight knit network of people that would consider this sort of thing? And you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how many people would consider it if you're willing to get into the production game.
So your agency began as a podcast, and
Yeah.
it evolved into what it is now. Okay, that's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was like I said, podcast for 2 years, and then we realized actually we have a business. Which the best way to monetize our network and audience was to do creative work for them, because essentially, if you look at it, our podcast was the perfect case study. They're like, oh well, fuck, they can do it, so may as well pay them to do it. I want it to look like literally our first customer said, I want it to look like this, which was uncommon. So it's like,
So you were the
we can do
benchmark.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we could do that. And over time, you work out the little things like going to market, how to get more clients. Like I always think that getting the first client is actually easier than the second client. Because, if you go past one client is often someone but 2 or 3 is people you don't know, complete strangers, and they're much more skeptical of you as an individual. So for me, that was the hardest part. Like I reckon our first client was our only client for a good 6 months.
And your clients, are they mainly word of mouth, or is it advertising now, or a bit of both?
It's a good question. I mean, there's, I'd say 50% is word of mouth. If I look at our roster of clients today, like, I mean, because our focus will always be on a select few clients as opposed to scaling for volume. So I would rather have 10 clients spending 100 grand rather than 100 spending a small amount. So our goal is to have no more than 15 clients ever and have clients that are really concentrated and doing cool work. And if I look at it realistically, like one or two to this day are sort of still word of mouth, maybe three, and the others are predominantly from advertising. And so we used to advertise on Google,
Right.
we used to advertise on Facebook, and it's become so competitive. When we started advertising on TikTok, we realized how cheap it was in comparison to every other platform. We just moved all of our ad dollars to TikTok. Like, I think we might spend $20 a week on Google Ads. So yeah, it's been very, very profitable for us going into the TikTok space in particular. And that's how most people find us. I mean, you get occasional people who find us via the podcast as well, but we push that less and less these days.
Okay. Is it true that the algorithm for TikTok promotes quick growth? Or I've heard that it's very easy to because my friend just started putting out these financial TikToks, and he's getting, like, 100 views, 200 views, 300 views just starting out.
Mm.
And like, in comparison to if you launch a YouTube channel and you're trying to get views, it's very difficult.
Oh yeah.
So I feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, they promote new users on TikTok.
Well, the thing is that TikTok is relying on organic growth, so it's pretty. I think well, what I've learned is that YouTube, Facebook, and definitely Google. Google's in a more mature phase, but Facebook and YouTube they're mature businesses now. So they're managers, they're CEOs, they're executives. There's an imperative on them to start more than just breaking even or stop losing money. They need to make money now. And so YouTube is a good example. And during COVID is when they released a massive abundance of ad stock. So you can watch a video now on YouTube that's monetized, and there'll be 10 or 15 ads within it. Nearly every couple of minutes there will be an ad if it's like a 20-minute video. So for myself, I switched to the YouTube. Is it YouTube Premium or YouTube Red? But the option that was essentially ad free, because they need to make those platforms profitable. Same with Facebook, but Facebook's gone to the nth degree where they have throttled people so much. You'd be lucky if 3 to 5% of your audience sees what you post, because they want you to pay to reach your own audience, which is just, if you've invested all this time and effort into that platform, you'd be absolutely furious. TikTok, on the other hand, they are really aware that they completely rely on creators for their current growth. Now, whether that mindset amongst the executives will change in future, I don't know. But they're the challenger, right? So they need to
Mm.
attract people onto the platform as much as possible. Now, how do they do that? Organic growth is one way. Tools is another. I mean, some of the tools you have available on TikTok to monetize is way better. Like, particularly for influencers, a lot of them believe that TikTok is not as greedy as Instagram. Instagram doesn't like it when influencers make money for paid ads or paid ads on their platform instead of
Mm.
being paid for ads within the feed.
Yeah.
Whereas TikTok doesn't care. They actually encourage it. There's a creator marketplace where you can see a profile of a creator. And our agency has a talent agreement with TikTok. So all of our talent can be listed on their creator marketplace and get jobs from that marketplace essentially. So the ethos is very different, and I think because of that, that's my, I guess, reasoning on why they will succeed. They will become the biggest platform. I mean, they're the biggest platform in terms of usage now. Like, it far exceeds YouTube and Instagram or Facebook, and Netflix as well. So yeah, I think it's sort of inevitable. The things that they're doing, things like what your friends experiencing, will make TikTok the dominant platform for the next decade.
Interesting. Okay, thanks for sharing that. And I guess my next question is not really related to the social media world. I've actually had a look at your Uncommon podcast, and
Okay.
the theme of I guess psychedelics or mushrooms came up, and I mean, I don't know. You feel free if you want to answer this question, or you don't have to answer it. But have you experienced any psychedelic experiences? Ever?
I haven't, but I'm looking at it at the moment, mainly
Okay.
because so the thing that intrigued me about it personally is that uh, from about the age of 22, I had anxiety.
Okay.
I don't know what it came from. Um, I think it was maybe like just blowing a gasket, overworking at the
Mhm.
time. I distinctly remember my first ever anxiety experience. First and second experiences were like crazy. I remember feeling like I was having a heart attack. I was driving home and I had to pull over and like call my mum, and I was freaking out, and it was the worst experience ever. And then a couple months later, it was um, it was sort of similar in that. So I worked at this Greek restaurant, the Press Club in the city, well-known Greek restaurant at the time, George
Okay.
Columbaris's place, and
Did
they
he
had
pay
this.
you?
He paid me. He paid me. He paid casuals fine, just not full-time workers.
Okay.
What they were owed. So they had this little machine. I loved Greek coffee. Like my dad's got a Greek background, so we had lots of Greek coffee as a kid, and I had two Greek coffees, one after the other, and nothing to eat for the day. And I remember just having a complete disassociation. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's just like this feeling of like you're not in your body, like you don't feel real, if that makes
Okay.
sense. That was my, the first 2-3 months of me having anxiety. I was like, okay, I need to go do something about this. Um, it took me years to properly see a psychologist, and I think in 2018 is when I really sorted it out. It got to the point for me, it was bad enough that I just realized I had to take medication. That
Right.
medication helped me sort out a lot of the chronic, so it helped me sort out a lot of the acute issues, because like I guess anxiety is different for everyone. It could be acute or it can be chronic, but I had both. So it was always there, but then I could have acute panic attacks, if that makes sense. So it stopped the panic attacks. It allowed me to get some things in my life back on track. And now I've gotten to the point where things feel settled enough that I know either my brother and I, because my brother's big on shrooms and acid and stuff like that.
Okay.
Um, Probably in the next month, so we'll look at like he'll like trip sit me or something like that, and like I'll probably do mushrooms, something a little bit more organic.
Yeah.
But yeah, interviewing people about that topic is totally fascinating. I think it's really sad that people like cancer patients, soldiers, terminally ill people are not able to get access to these things for times in their life where it would help them massively, particularly if they were being sat by a psychiatrist.
Yeah, you mentioned Sam Harris at the start of the podcast, and I believe in one of his books he mentions that there's a life lived without the take. I can't remember which book it was, but he mentioned that the a life lived without taking any, I guess, any of these substances is a life wasted. Something to that extent.
Yeah.
It's a pretty intense, uh, bold claim, but I think there's some merit towards it because it really shifts the paradigm of your world, and it really it allows you to see the possibilities.
Yeah. Have you tried any psychedelics?
I've tried mushrooms before,
Okay.
weed.
What was it like?
Uh,
Oh, I've tried weed. Yeah. I wouldn't call weed a true psychedelic though. Like I know it definitely relaxes you, but it can also jack up your nervous system.
yeah, it can.
So I would say like and it doesn't, like you can green out on it, but it's not able to distort your senses in the way that true psychedelics can, like mushrooms or acid or something like that.
mm.
So what was your experience like with mushrooms?
Actually, I got a YouTube video on it, but I'll
Okay.
just a bit of a cheeky plug. But so my experience was, I didn't take a large dose. I didn't take a heroic dose. It was quite a small dose, but just mild hallucinations. There was no existential crisis. It was pretty normal. Yeah, I haven't taken anything in large doses. I'm always a bit cautious.
Mm,
So, but I guess like with weed and marijuana, I mean, I'm not recommending that anyone takes it, but my experience has been it brings me more connected to other human beings. I know that it's given me a lot more social opportunities, and what I mean by that is when I'm high, I'm just in a state of peacefulness, tranquility. I'm just calm and I'm just peaceful. And people make fun of you. You look like a stoner. This that. But yeah, I think there's a real yeah. You're just at peace. And for me, that's my experience anyway. So
yeah,
yeah,
it definitely makes you way more relaxed.
yeah,
The only thing that scared the shit out of me about marijuana was so my family has this history of dementia. Some of it is genetic, and some of it is lifestyle related. So a genetic version would be a syndrome that my uncle has called frontal lobe syndrome, where it's basically like dementia that he could never escape from. Whereas my grandmother had dementia called vascular dementia, and it's sort of like it's like if you have a stroke or something like that, and it arrives in the hippocampus, so it starts to impinge on your memory over time and slowly kills the hippocampus.
right.
So that's what most people's dementia is like. It's not like Alzheimer's or anything like that. And I just remember the first experience I had, I was in Copenhagen, like I would have been 21 or something like that. We're traveling through Europe for 6 months, my girlfriend and I. And I I took weed and it was great. I was so relaxed, but the next day I could not remember a fucking thing. Like my memory was gone. And so it scared the absolute shit out of me. I was like, "Oh no, is this like triggering something that's inherently there?" So, yeah, and I've done weed. I did weed since then as well over the years, but it just fucked with my memory. It really tripped me.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that you want to be doing. It's an occasional thing, I think, and yeah, definitely, it's not a you can't you're not at your highest performance level. You can't. Yeah, your memory goes. And I actually I had a guy on the podcast. He's a dream coach, and
Oh yeah.
he coaches people to have their subconscious and things like that. And he talks about the drinking alcohol and marijuana is not good for if you want to have good dreams.
Mhm.
Don't take those two things. So
Yeah. Okay. That's so funny.
yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if there's many like people who are practitioners in like trip sitting, because I wonder if that would be handy as opposed to getting like a sibling or a friend to do it.
I reckon, yeah, there probably is. I mean, yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe there's a service. Maybe that's a new
New
business.
business. Trip sitting
uh,
Melbourne.
trip
Yeah, I
sitting.
just don't know how would you advertise that. That'd be it's so funny. It's all just like Reddit posts. Trip sitter required in Melbourne for shrooms. That's so funny.
Oh
Ah,
well, I mean, there's every service now available as an app now. So I think, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if someone after this podcast, someone goes ahead and makes it. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, all that stuff totally fascinates me. Can I just ask with the shrooms experience? Like you said, you didn't take a heroic dose. What was the sort of insight you had after the experience, like post trip? What was the sort of, I don't know, like the viewpoint after that?
nothing fantastic.
Okay.
I just I just enjoyed being present and being like uber present, being in the moment, and just nothing else matters. Yeah, just it's quite simple. It's I didn't have any crazy experience. You hear these things on Joe Rogan where they're launched into and they see all these elves or things like that. I didn't have anything like that. It was, as I said, I didn't take a heroic dose, so I was a bit cautious about that.
Mm,
And yeah, I mean, I've never, yeah, it wasn't anything crazy.
okay.
Um,
Interesting. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
but I hear you're into meditation as well. Is that?
Yeah. So it's it's funny it's funny you mention that. Like I do every day I've got it on my it looks so ridiculous, but I've got like a print out my calendar because I like paper versions of things. It's so ridiculous. Like you can see the normal week, I just cross out everything
Oh
once
yeah.
it's done. So every day at maybe 12:30, I'll have lunch. So I eat lunch for maybe 45 minutes, and then I'll meditate afterwards religiously, and that really helps with my anxiety. There is no better fucking feeling in the world for me personally. It feels like it just recharges my not my limbic system, but my nervous system sort of just it goes back to square. I literally feel like a sort of tingling sensation when I'm meditating for long enough. And then when I come out of the meditation, I snap back and it's like I've had a sleep. So, yeah, I try and meditate religiously Monday to Friday. Unfortunately, this week I've probably meditated 2 out of 4 days. I was hoping to meditate before this and hoping I'd do it before I go to gym today, but sometimes life just catches up. But
Yeah.
I always try and do that as much as possible.
Are you listening to an audio guided version, or what's your style?
I just sit there typically. I sit. I've got like a specific couch. I'll sit back on it, let my head rest, and just let my thoughts wander. Basically, try and make sure like that I concentrate on sort of this area, which is sort of where you hold your thoughts, or where I hold my thoughts, and sort of my breath. As much as possible, and sometimes I can, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I fall asleep briefly. So
Okay.
that's all I do with noises and stuff like that. I don't know. I found like it distracted me more than anything. What about yourself?
I was trying to get into the habit of doing it in the morning. Yeah, same. I'm probably doing about 3 or 4 times a week. Anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes in the morning. And I feel like the mornings that I do meditate, I'm a little bit more patient,
Hmm.
and I'm not as emotionally charged.
Mm.
So I can see my emotions come into my own mind, and then I can make a logical decision whether to go left or right. But if I don't meditate, I'm more susceptible to those emotions coming through and controlling my life. So
Mm.
yeah, I feel like I can have better control over my life.
Why
Uh,
morning and not like midday or end of the day or anything like that?
good question. I don't know. The morning is, I don't know. Maybe it's just something I feel like I need to do it in the morning. I don't know why, but I feel like after I've eaten a meal, I feel tired. So I don't want to. I might fall asleep if I meditate then. But if as soon as I'm up, yeah, do the meditation in the morning, and it sets me for my day. It's a
Yeah.
good, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say for me I'd agree with that. You're definitely susceptible to falling asleep if you do it after lunch or something. But um, I don't know. I'm such a lazy starter and not an early riser that like for me, if I did that, I would still fall back asleep anyway. Um, but yeah, it's good.
And are you starting with a coffee?
No, I can't really have coffee anymore because it just makes me too anxious.
Oh, is that
So
okay?
yeah, so nowadays I have a lot of green tea. So
Oh,
I'll have a green tea every morning after like having a protein shake, and yeah, I feel like I could have a coffee sort of after a big meal on the weekend, but if I did that, there's just no way I could do it nowadays. I'd just have a panic attack. Just wouldn't work. So, but yeah, green tea's my go-to.
go to. Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
I have a coffee religiously in the morning. Yeah, it's that's my go-to. So I've been
What?
trying to cut back. This is actually my fourth coffee for today. So
Jesus.
yeah, I drink too much coffee. So
What? How do you have it?
black with a bit of soy milk.
Black with soy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would. I'd be fried if I did that. It just would not work.
So why is that? So it just it must has a trigger reaction to your kind of brings up anxiety and
Yeah,
jitters, or yeah,
just like really bad jitters. Really bad jitters. I obviously get the shakes, and it just makes me fucking anxious. It just makes me susceptible to sort of like hyperventilating or having a panic attack. I don't know how to explain it. It's like the way I've explained it over the years to my psych is that we've all got like a base layer of anxiety.
yeah,
And for me as an A type individual, it's higher than average. And so if I add in to a bucket all these other things like an intense work life balance or lots of work, running a business, related pressures and stresses, not enough sleep, or too much coffee, stuff like that, it gets to a point where I boil over. So there's certain things I just have to do to make sure that my anxiety just doesn't get up there. So I'm sleeping enough, I'm meditating, I'm exercising at least 2 or 3 times a week, like doing weights or something. I'm resting enough, I'm not working too hard. If all those things work out, I don't have really bad anxiety as well. Also taking my medication. If I have coffee, coffee is one of those things that just pushes me closer to the edge than most. So it would be like if I had a bucket and I filled it up with all these other things and then brought it down with all these other things. If I put in coffee, it would be a significant amount more than all the other things combined. So yeah, that's just my experience of it.
do you think there's any positive of having this anxiety?
I mean, there's definitely what has my psychologist said? There's definitely pros and cons of it. Like
Yeah,
it's part of honestly, I think a lot of people just have anxiety because it's part of their personality. Like some more than most. I think it's pretty clear to me that I'm an A-type individual. That makes me
and so
very
sorry, do you mind explaining what that means? I haven't heard that term.
so
What is A type?
A-type is actually I don't know. I can't remember what the DSM is like the psychology textbook. Um, but I'll just actually double check what the definition says.
Sure.
But it's like type A and type B personality hypothesis describes two contrasting personality types. In type A, you're generally more competitive, highly organized, ambitious, impatient, highly aware of things, all that sort of stuff. So it's basically when, if you look at your big five personality components, which is probably the most scientific thing we have around personality, you're typically you're more neurotic, you are more conscientious, so you're more driven, you like things. I was showing you before the calendar, you're very organized, you're hardworking. All these things make you a type A personality, whereas a type B is someone who leans less conscientiously and more creatively. So you don't have as much structure in your life, and therefore you're more willing to get lost in things. So a type A individual is very driven, and that might be, a CEO, an executive, something like that. But it is a double-edged sword without a doubt. And that's the biggest realization I had working with a psychologist is that you have this thing that can make you achieve stuff in your life that you want to. Like in my mind, anything is achievable, pretty much. However, that same mindset just means that you're less aware of when you've gone over the edge. And good examples for me lately have been like I'll finish work at 6:30 p.m. I'll eat dinner, chill out for a bit. Probably by 8:39, I'm back on the computer doing emails and like getting on top of things because we're so busy at the moment. I'm not finishing till like 11 p.m. at night. So it means that you don't get to bed until 1 a.m. at night. Like as in you're in bed, but you're not sleeping until 1 a.m. So type A personality or a type A person has to be really aware of the fact that while they're anxious and driven and strong-willed, that can also completely burn you out. Um, so yeah, it's just something that I've got to be very wary of.
Type B? Does it? I'm
Uh,
guessing it would be the opposite of that of type A. I don't
type
know.
type B is just sort of, I mean, it's a generalization. I've not seen type B used much. Type
Okay.
A is just really to describe someone who's just really intense. So,
Okay.
um, but yeah, I've got elements of my person. I've got very high creativity and very high conscientiousness. So,
Okay.
it's hard to curate both because I'm very driven, but I'm also very open to new things. So I can lose interest in something very quickly and go head first into that thing. That's why, for me, the podcast has been amazing because it gives me an outlet to find a thing, go deep on it, and then I can just fuck it off and go on to the next topic because I've got a podcast. You know what I mean? So I can go deep on psychedelics and psychedelic research, but then I can also just drop it and then get back into like marketing the next week. So yeah, it's just all about like knowing yourself, know thyself, and balance it as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I've kind of struggled with that a little bit as well. Kind of the shiny new toy that comes along, and you want to learn about that, and you drop what you're doing at the current point in time. Yeah, I feel like I'm always, those ads that are bringing out like this restream. I got sucked into it through this Facebook ad, and I'm like, oh yeah, this looks cool. And then I got sucked into this other. It's called Conversion.ai, and it writes. I don't know if you've tried it, and it writes your copyright. So if you want to write a blog post, this thing will write it for you. Well, it'll write an outline for you. So I kind of get sucked into all these new tools and all these new little things. So yeah, I need to stay a little bit more grounded in that sense. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of
I'm definitely guilty of that. And sometimes it's just about defining what's your wheelhouse, what's your area of competence. And I actually had to do that with the podcast probably a year or so ago. And I just started defining what it was and what was the area I wanted to look at. Because people would just be like, oh, I love the podcast, but I'm just not sure. Like, like, obviously it's an interview show, but they were like, who are the people? And so you look at like a Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan's got UFC, comedy, UFOs, um, sort of intellectual dark web. So sort of four key areas, so to speak. Maybe psychedelics as well, psychedelics and weed. So he's got like five key areas he touches on, and he's done that for however long the podcast has been running since like 2011. So I just had to, for me, better define that. And so once you got it written down, I think it's very, very handy, and you can sort of define when you're extending yourself too far, basically.
But what about when you change as a person though? Then I mean, because I feel like my podcast was mainly about health and wellness, but now I'm just interviewing. I guess it's not a good thing, but I'm just interviewing people that I find interesting, and I want to learn a little bit more about. And I'm hopefully my audience is kind of on the same boat as me.
Mm.
I don't know. What are your opinions on that? Do you think it's good to niche, or yeah, what are your opinions?
Well, I guess you should ask yourself, like, what is it about people that you find interesting? And then that would be your niche. I mean, it can definitely change. Like, it doesn't have, nothing has to be stringent. You just have to give people some predictability so they can make a
Mhm.
decision on whether to continue working with you or listening with you or whatever it may be. So I guess you just have to ask yourself is what is it about people that you find interesting? And so what is the commonality amongst those things? Um, is it the performance element? Is it the curiosity element? What is it in particular that you like about people? And so that's what I just dive deeper on. And it gives you freedom. I think being confined or positively constrained in a creative way can be good for you. Because the alternative is you become like a starving artist who just looks at everything, and they can never focus on one key thing, and they can never have success, because if they're just focused on a specific area and become a champion in that area, then they probably would have had more success. I mean, that's just an obvious thing about life, that when you read a lot of biographies, when you interview a lot of people, when you review a lot of people's lives, it's that focus that gives people clarity. So that's the only thing I'd say to that, is that, I was probably like yourself when I first started out doing the podcast, where you think my uniqueness is doing everything, but that also means you're trying to be everything for everyone. You should just be true to what it is that you really enjoy. Does that make
Mm,
sense?
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about marketing for a podcast? Were you running any ads um, at the start of your podcast?
On the podcast itself.
Yeah.
Not really. Like, I don't think we had a big enough audience. I think it makes sense if you're getting 10, 20, 50, 100,000 downloads because you've got scale. So there's three things that you can scale in your life, basically. And this is the thing I've learned from, it's not Yuval Noah Harari. It's, what's his name? The famous VC that owns Angel List founder. What's his name? He's got an amazing podcast. Naval Ravikant.
Oh, Naval Ravikant.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he talks about three things, and I think I'd agree with it. There's not much else outside of that really can dictate scale. So the first one is capital. Capital is having money to invest in something and get a return on it. It's people, hiring people or coordinating people or networking with people to get an outcome of scale. And the third is code. So I think what you have to work out, and the other one is media. Sorry. So capital, code, people, and media. So you've got to work out what is the thing that you can get scale from the most. So if you have a podcast and like us, you only have 2,000 unique listeners. For some people, that doesn't sound like most, particularly if you're a B2C brand. It sounds like nothing, and it is in their context. But to something like a B2B person where getting 100 people in a room, prominent people in a business space is hard. Having 1,800, 2,000, 3,000 unique leaders listening to something is incredibly valuable. Like
Mm.
that's incredibly valuable network to have. So for me, it was like just identifying what was the thing that we were good at and what was the thing that we had available to scale. I couldn't code for shit. I tried to learn it. It's just not in my personality type. I just got bored of it, to be honest with you. I looked and I like I could sell. I'm better with networking and people that I should just sell and utilize those resources to pay for other people to do things like code. So that gave me capital. I could use that capital to buy code, to do this, to do that. So or to make media as an example. So it just comes down to what you think you have in your corner and then utilize that as much as possible. Do you feel that you have code, media, people, or capital in your corner?
Media, I have. Not code, not money. Um, yeah, if I had to answer the question, it's probably media and people. Those two, yeah.
Okay, so you've got to think about how can you utilize those things to give yourself a lifestyle that you want. I don't know if you do this full time or casually on top of a job, but that's what it was like for me in the first 2-3 years of the podcast. It was like, fuck, what? And I had it for years. I had my dad, I had my now father-in-law asking me like, so what is it? Like, what is it that you do? Like, how do you make money from this? And I literally just had to answer, we don't know. We don't know yet, but we will. I can tell you that because there's momentum with this thing and we can feel it. We can see it in the downloads. We can see it with the people and the way they give us feedback. But there is momentum in this thing. And it took, honestly, 3 years, no, 4 years, I reckon it's been. What year did I say? 2017? It's 4 years now to this, till February is when we launched. 4 and a bit years. And I can finally say with absolute certainty what it's given us. So sometimes you just have to figure that out and you've got to make mistakes along the way to work that out.
And with your downloads, how are you tracking them through the Apple Marketplace or the iTunes, or how are you tracking your downloads?
Well, I guess it comes down to what you publish with, but we use God, what is it called? It is Simplecast.
Simplecast.
It's been years since I published the podcast myself. It's all done by our producer and creative director. So we use Simplecast. Simplecast connects to everything. The main ones being Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, like Pocket Casts or just everything. Google Podcasts, and all of that data gets collated into the platform and tells you like your numbers. So we could look at downloads. The download numbers are good, but the downloads to me are not accurate enough. For me, what intrigues me is the unique listeners. So the platform estimates based on your downloads and the amount of devices it's being used on, how many unique people actually listen to your show. So, we could tell you downloads, but downloads is just not, to me, an accurate measure. So, yeah, for me, I'm more interested in unique listeners. And honestly, I couldn't tell you how many we had in the last month because I just rarely check it these days. I'm too busy.
And sorry, last question. I'll make this the last question because we're hitting the hour mark. But do you run in podcast ads?
Like as in on other podcasts itself?
Like during the podcast, like a sponsorship. This podcast is sponsored by blah blah blah, or things like that.
No, because I didn't really feel like it had enough value. Like if someone did it, they'd pay us $200, $300 max, just based on the downloads we were getting. And I was like, it's not really worth it. Like it's really, if I look at our current 7-day downloads and divide it by the CPM available, what is the CPM? I think it's 1,000 downloads these days. And what is it, like 40 Aussie dollars? Yeah, we'd be lucky to get $150, $180 per sponsorship. And to me, it's just like, it's not worth it. So, yeah, to answer your question, no. I think one thing that you sort of would probably want to know as well is how do you grow your podcast enough to get to that point? And a very interesting chat I had recently with ARN and iHeartRadio was because they wanted to move our podcast from Simplecast onto their platform and give us like editorial support. You have 3 options really. It's billboards, it's social ads, it's ads in other podcasts. The last one, which is incredibly rare, so that would actually make it 4, is editorial features. So the main value that you can get is features on platforms like Spotify, Apple, etc. And for us, that would probably blow our podcast up because most of the reviews are 5 stars. Most of the feedback people give us when they first find the show is, how did I not find this show? Like all these guests that I know and I respect and I want to listen to them and you've covered it in a different way. Why can't we find them? And, it just goes down to discovery. Podcast discovery is incredibly hard. It's probably the hardest thing in this space.
Because every Tom, Dick and Harry is
starting a podcast.
Podcasting on their iPhone or something like that. Yeah.
And that's another thing is just lasting long enough. So if you can last long enough, we've been doing it 4 years, that gets you noticed as well.
Okay. Well, I'm up to this is my 60th episode, so I haven't given up yet. So I'm going to stay persistent.
You're just beginning.
I'm just beginning, I know.
Get to 100 and then we'll chat.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, I might put a pin in it. I might call the episode there. It's been a good experience chatting with you, Jordan. And where can people find you? How can people connect with you?
So if you just Google Uncommon Podcast, you'll probably find us. Neuralle.com, Neuralle.com. I'm just trying to think. I don't really tell people my own handles, but it's Jordan Mick, MICH is like the best place to find me, and that's on TikTok. That's where I'm most active, but Instagram as well is just at Jordan Michaelides. But yeah, find the show and you'll find me.
All right. It was lovely to chat with you, and thanks guys for listening, and please subscribe to my show, Christian Buddy Show. Thank you.